Hello everyone. I thought that I would take a moment to put on a video, just a little bit of a story for you, to talk about how God came into my life. I know people hear these kinds of stories and they think it's strange, or people get tired of others preaching all the time. You get sick of it and you get burnt out on that kind of stuff. But I thought maybe, just maybe, if I told my story, then maybe that would provide some understanding, or, who knows what could happen. I really have to start off by saying I'm really a broken person. I've made so many mistakes in my life, and to be honest, I've always been broken in some way. For such a long time, I held on to grudges, and I've held on to anger from things from the past. How I grew up, family drama, just everything from before in my past, holding on to them. And I held on to those things so tightly, those grudges. I was married once before and had the whole thing, the house, the kids, everything you can imagine, and thought that if I worked towards my goals and provided for my family, that house somehow translated that I was a good father, a good man, a good provider, all of that. But I also tended to be critical of others, especially if they were going to talk to me about Jesus or God. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they are so crazy. They are just dependent people who are insecure. But not me. I was free from all of that. And I remember when my father passed, it left this incredible hole in my heart. I felt like something was missing after he passed away. And I couldn't really explain it. I didn't know why. There was a lot of family drama, a lot of family history that probably influenced me and made me bitter for many years. And I held on to that bitterness. Really, it became my own crutch. That became how I viewed the world, through these bitter eyes. I became very skeptical of people. I would always wonder what was in with their attitude. What did they want from me? Were they going to be someone who took advantage of me? And then when my father passed and I had this hole in my heart, I felt like I needed something. Now I had grown up in a Christian family, but at that time for me, it was more about the legalities of it, the right and wrongs of it, the black and whites. And then when I became older and into my 20s, I rejected all of that. I thought, I don't want to hear anything about God. That's not true. I don't believe it. And again, my father passed, so I was searching for something to fill this hole in my heart. But there was nothing that filled it. And I studied different faiths and eventually started studying Buddhism. And I practiced that for a while. Each morning I would get up and I would sit in the lotus position and I would meditate for, an hour. And at night when I would get back home from work, I would meditate again. And I did that, every day for 6 months, maybe up to even a year. But then after a while, it became mundane. It really didn't work anymore, and I didn't feel like I needed something anymore. I had completed that. I had finished filling that hole, but I still would call myself a Buddhist. And the real reason for that was because I wanted to be different. I wanted to be unique. And as time progressed and many years going along, I would tell people I was a Buddhist, but I really wasn't practicing it anymore. I didn't want to have these conversations with people when they would come up to me and talk to me about God or Jesus. I would say, no, thank you, I'm a Buddhist. And I took pleasure in that. It was almost as if I was mocking them. And again, time would go on, and as time did go on, I felt like there was this tugging from God, but I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to face it, but again, I felt this tugging, this presence, but I kept ignoring it. I was very stubborn about it for so long. And then my life took a turn. Everything in my life, everything that I had built for, everything that I had worked hard for, just one day crumbled away. And it hit me. It came as a complete shock. I had no idea that it was going to happen. I was just left dumbfounded. And at that time, with everything that I had worked for gone, the family, the house, the money, all of it was gone. But getting to that place finally allowed me to open up and really be honest with myself, to really take a good hard look at my own heart. There was this one time I remember I had gone to the bank to open up a bank account, and I had sat there after opening the bank account and in the car, and I just kept thinking, okay, my marriage is over, that's ended, and I just felt so worthless, so low. And I prayed at that moment, and I just looked to God and I said, I don't know what to do anymore. And it wasn't really a prayer, it was just me kind of speaking to the heavens and just being very open. And then I had this strange experience, this warmth surrounded me. It was like a warm blanket had just wrapped itself around me and around my heart. And I remember so vividly, so clearly this statement, this sentence. It wasn't like a voice in your head. It wasn't that. But it was just suddenly I had this clear understanding of this one statement that said, Michael, you need to go visit Eric, Pastor Eric. Now, Pastor Eric, I knew him. He was this deaf preacher in our community, and I've known him for many years, but not well. We weren't best friends. We didn't hang out, but I've known him for many years. And why that just suddenly came up, Michael, you need to go see Pastor Eric right now. I was shocked. I'm like, okay, I don't even know how to contact him. But I did know I had his wife's contact information, so I contacted his wife, and she got me in touch with him and at the church, and I went to the church. And as I got into the church, I sat with Pastor Eric, and I just started telling him all of the things that were going on in my life, and he talked to me a little bit about faith and what really faith meant. That faith was trusting in what you could see and trusting in those things you couldn't see too. And as I started talking to him a little bit more about some of the things that happened in my families and some of the drama and all of that, and how I had been so resistant, and just my experiences from all of that I've been holding on to, and Pastor Eric said, Michael, that's 20, 30 years ago, and isn't it time to forgive and move on? Why are you holding on to these things for so long? How does that benefit you anymore? And I realized it didn't benefit me, not at all. That I had been holding on to this hate, this grudge for so long. And all it was doing was hurting me. And as Pastor Eric sat there and he started talking about the Lord, and I have to admit, I had that sensation again, that warm blanket that surrounded my heart. And I don't know how to put it into words. I don't know how to explain it, or I just couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't ignore that God was there. And it just came over me. All of the mistakes that I had made in my life, so many of them. And as I looked at my own heart and just said, this heart is worthless. I'm just too low. So Eric prayed with me, and he asked if I would be willing to allow God to work within my heart. And I said yes. And Eric asked, would you be willing to accept Christ? Would you believe in Jesus? And I said, yes, I would be willing to accept Christ. And I just remember how badly I wept. And I prayed, God, please forgive me. Forgive me, forgive me. I have been so foolish for so long. Please forgive me. All of this anger that I've been holding on to, this rage for so many years. And I prayed that Jesus would come into my heart. And as time has progressed, I've begun reading more scripture, reading different books, listening to Christian music, just all of these things, and really taking time to reflect on myself. I started going to this church or that church until I found my church home. And again, as time went on a little bit more, all of those things that made me sad and depressed and angry and heartbroken, it slowly melted away. It wasn't an overnight thing. It wasn't like a miracle or magic, or it was like there was this splinter, and that God had been working its way out of me, out of my heart. And that's really it. It was such a funny thing that when God did start just maneuvering this splinter out of my heart and getting rid of it, I started looking around more and feeling so much more joy and happiness and seeing things in a much different way. The sky seemed more blue and the grass more green, and people tended to smile more often. And it really struck me. I felt more comfortable with myself. I felt more confident. I felt love. And I then began looking around and recognizing these strange things that would happen that I couldn't give explanation to. Friends would call me just out of the blue, as it were. Just call me and say, Michael, I don't know why, but I felt like God wanted me to give you a call to see how you were doing. I'm like, really? I was like, well, if I'm going to be telling you the truth, to be very honest, I've been feeling a little depressed, but you're calling me has warmed my spirit. So I remember this one time a friend had called me, and I was out of town for work on a business trip, and it was one evening, and I was feeling kind of down. And I get this call from my friend, and they said, Michael. And I said, yes. And they said, don't say anything. And I said, what? Don't say anything. I said, I just want you to sit there and I want you to listen. And then my friend began singing this song, this very beautiful, inspirational song. And it really affected me. It really touched my heart, and I began to cry a little. And then once she was done with the song, she said, Michael, I just want you to know that you are loved and that you are very special. You just need to know that. She hung up. And that evening, I just felt that warm embrace from God over my heart again. And from that point forward, I just started talking to God like a normal person, just like an everyday conversation. And at first you're thinking, this is going to be awkward. What do I say? What do I do? How do I pray? I don't know how to do that. But that night I just talked like an old friend. And I began to feel like God was communicating back to me. It wasn't just a one-way conversation, but I was getting messages back. He was talking back to me, and he would tease me, and he would joke, and he's a funny guy. I know, for people who have never experienced that seems insane. That seems totally ridiculous. But it's the truth, I swear. And as time has gone on, I have been hanging with other people who have that same joy given to them, put in their heart by God, and it's been I have also noticed that my relationships with my mom and my siblings have gotten strong again and healthy. And over time, my kids, they have gotten healthier. They're not upset about their parents' divorce or those kinds of things. It's been good. And there's just been all of these little miracles. I think they were there, but now I began to recognize it. It's kind of like, those 3D posters that you see. They have the different colors and there are these wavy lines on the poster. And when you first look at them, it just looks like a bunch of wavy lines. And sometimes people will tap you when you're staring at it and say, no. There's supposed to be a shape that comes out of it. Some kind of animal or a rocket or something, or like a dolphin, And so you look at it, but if you look at it in the right way, then you'll be able to see the dolphin. And at first you're like, all I see is this poster with these wavy lines. Until a friend comes up and says, no. Just change how you're looking at it. Don't look straight ahead. Don't look straight at it. Just change your view just a little bit. Change your perspective. And so you do that, and once you've changed that perspective, all of a sudden, this dolphin shape comes out. And you can see the outlining of the dolphin. And it's amazing. And God is like that. Every day that we go through this life, you're just moving along, doing your regular thing. You don't see anything but the wavy lines. You get lost in it all. But then when God touches your heart and opens your eyes, you look around and you say, oh my goodness, God is everywhere. He's in everything that happens. So here I am today. I have many good friends that God has placed in my life, but even more importantly, I feel love and joy. And I know that even when things happen that are quote unquote bad, I know God is there and He loves me. He will not neglect me. He will not discard me. If I keep my eyes focused on Him, and that's the key, then I'll get that support I need and that help and that love that will lead me through life. That even when life gets overwhelming and frustrating and I just hit obstacle after obstacle, God is there to guide me through it. So, I guess that's my story. I've recently married again, and she's this beautiful woman. She who loves God herself, and I'm just very, very happy. So, that's my story, condensed in a nutshell, and I hope you like it. If you're thinking about any of this, and you have doubts, that's okay. My advice to you is just sit somewhere in a quiet place and just talk with God directly. Just talk to Him yourself. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything about you. You don't. God loves you right now. He already knows who you are and how you are. He already knows the mistakes that you've made, and it doesn't matter. He still loves you. He still wants to talk with you. So do it. Anyways, that's it. Have a great day. Love to everyone.